is alleged with the most misappropriation of funds, corruption, etc., etc. So it's really difficult to decipher.
Let it go back to
But
court.
let's see. This one is a murky one.
So we have very many scholarship programs and bursary programs by the government. Now we have a new one called the Elimu Scholarship Program, which was launched yesterday by Education CS George Magoha, and it's aimed at aiding children from poor backgrounds realize their dreams by helping them get an education. So this one is targeting to benefit 9,000 students. It wants to do 18,000 students in 2 years. It's a pilot program that was just launched yesterday with the aid of Equity Bank as well. So it's a good thing. It's a good place to start because you're talking about people who performed well in the KCPE exams. They come from poor backgrounds. They may not be able to afford a high school education, paying school fees. But now here comes what we call a mdhamini. This is a sponsor. In the name of government, who says we're going to, cater for your education, for your secondary education.
Equity Bank.
Oh, okay. It's Equity
You see, this
Bank.
one comes, yes.
Yeah, because it comes through that.
It comes through Equity.
Oh, this is what the partnership again was sorting out last week.
Yes. So the last week's thing was the Wings to Fly. And
Yes.
the Wings to Fly is separate. So those that don't qualify for Wings to Fly, I think Equity has just said, all right, so we have Wings to Fly, which has a certain criteria. You score certain marks, you come from this kind of background, then we will support you through your education. And then this is for those that don't qualify as well. So you don't have necessarily to have scored high marks for this one. But like Magoha was saying, there are those that even scored less than 300 marks. But the fact that they scored less than 300 marks does not mean that they're incapable. Yeah, we just look at their circumstances and their situation and we say, even you qualify for that. So there's somebody who scored 300 and below, and there's somebody who scored 425. and imagine, and they were going to be unable to transition to Asumbi. 405 rather. 405 marks, and had been admitted to Asumbi Girls High School. My mother is a single parent who does casual jobs to provide for me and my brother. I'm happy to get this scholarship. This is Tamara Talia, a 14-year-old, one of the beneficiaries. A good thing to see.
I think so. Right. Looking regionally, do we have some time for that, Eric? Looking regionally, South African, and the way in which this headline has been framed is quite interesting too. South African black farmers fight to enter the bang market. The country's cannabis industry. The country's cannabis industry could be worth more than 2.3 trillion by 2023. That's 2 years from now. And it seems to have been something that has been dominated by the country's white farmers. But now South African black farmers are trying to enter into this market to see this as something that they could essentially prosper from. So it seems, just looking at that, it's something that is taking the world by storm, or smoke in this case, as it would be.
With a bang.
With a bang. Because more and more people are getting interested in it. And I see the day where we will have marijuana dispensaries. Because it's been closed off from them. It was controlled by the white farmers for a very, very long time. So as a lot of business in South Africa were controlled or dominated by white South Africans. And so now, obviously, there's money here. And look, for me, this is a good thing because now black South Africans are sitting up and saying, look, we can actually take control and do something for our own economic status. How far they will be allowed in, I don't know, because this is not a little money we're talking about. 2.3 billion. Oh, I'm sorry, $2.3 trillion, or shillings rather, by 2023. That's how high it could be. And they've seen...
South Africa alone?
In South Africa alone.
Wow. And
I see this taking the continent by storm as something that can be used as an alternate source of business.
Now that our tea and coffee is not working, maybe what the person who's ignored Central Mount Kenya region could do is...
Bring it on with a bang.
Bring it on with a bang. All right, this is the situation with Kenya's biggest conversation. We're taking a look at what's been covered in the headlines, what's happening around the world. Of course, we know local headlines as we've discussed them. We also know that there's a lot that's happening abroad, including in Iran. That's a little spat between the Iranian and the Americans. Let's find out exactly what's the latest happening there. Remember, you can download the Standard e-paper app from Google Play Store and Apple App Store. Just one subscription fee, and you get to access all of Standard Group's publications. Today being Thursday, the first Thursday of January, you also get to get the Travel Log magazine, Gione Kenya. Get that. Good morning. 28 minutes to 7 o'clock.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
Of course, things definitely did change from last week when nothing was happening until this morning now. Let's start off looking at what's happening on Mombasa Road today. Not so much. Trying to get into the city centre, not going to be too much of a problem. Of course, we continue to highlight what happens around the Mwiki Kasarani Road is moving now. That's because there's not much in terms of vehicles on the road, but definitely going to change. Of course, they have started roadworks there to try and fix it. So I guess agitation does work. Good morning, Wayaki Way. Let's see what that looks like. There was an accident, not a bit of an accident. There was an accident around the Udhiru area causing a little bit of traffic coming down through Wayaki Way. You're going to be stuck at Utawala area coming off and trying to access North Airport Road because of some traffic that has already started there. Gong Road and Langata Road not looking so bad right now. Trying to get to the T-Mall roundabout and then further on to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, not too much trouble. Let's take a look at Thika Road in a short while, and then we'll bump around and see what's happening in Mombasa and Kisumu about half an hour. But for now, it was the time to leave. You'll get there in good time. 0719-012-600 is the number to call. Shoot us a tweet so that we know what's going on and we'll spread the word.
96.1 Spice FM. Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
It's a situation room, Kenya's biggest conversation at 26 minutes to 7 o'clock. And this in the room this morning, my name is Eric Latif. We have Nduoko and CT Muga. What's happening in Iran? What has Trump said? He had said he's going to speak in the morning. It's now morning.
He's talking peace. He's talking peace. The rhetoric has changed completely. It's conciliatory. He's emphasizing three things. One, damage was only to structures and planes. No one was killed. That's number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, he mentions that with their strike or with their killing of this general, what they have done is they've rolled back the tide of terrorism. They say this is a gentleman who is responsible for a lot of terrorism because he sponsored many militia groups and many terrorist groups which threatened American lives. Every sentence has to end with that. It threatened American lives, and not only have they put a stop to it, but they will not allow it to continue. And then thirdly, he has said that they have the means to retaliate, but given the steps that have been taken, they feel that it is good for everyone now if people talk peace and people find a way. And what I found of note, third, is that he said America is committed to finding peaceable ways of working with, well, he didn't necessarily say directly Iran, but with the people around the world. I think the emphasis, he probably means, look, guys, we've been at it. Okay, we've gotten the message. It's not useful for everyone or anyone if we continue at this rate.
It's interesting because it seems to be a total 360 from where he was just a couple of days ago, even as late as yesterday. Because, I mean, he still kept giving reasons as to why they did what they did a few days ago in Iran. And he talked about we will not allow this kind of thing to happen and we dare Iran to try and revenge in any way. It seems to me that with what he's saying now, and I think he's still speaking now, even now, with what he's said so far, it is very clear that either somebody whispered in his ear or the circle of friends that he sits with at some point as the US president, especially from the Republican side, probably whispered to him, or even if there was some kind of external intervention.
This isn't his own Republicans only.
Exactly.
This is external.
Definitely
Because
external intervention. Somebody said, my friend, this you cannot do.
Yep.
have been very quiet. Even Saudi Arabia, who has always held the hand of the U.S. in terms of alliances
In the Middle East.
had not said anything, and would have usually been, one to speak up and say, either in support or in defiance of what they would have done. So it is clear that somebody said something, somebody advised in a particular way, because his tone is difference is black and white, totally different from yesterday.
But what is
2 days ago.
significant also, if you listen to his speech, he is also talking about how it is that as Americans, that they are living up to their mandate of ensuring that rogue nations such as Iran. And I was thinking to myself,
who designates?
Yeah, who this prefectship, okay? This position where you are the judge and you are the jury. You're the prosecutor and you're the jailer.
Yes.
Yeah, you decide who's a terrorist. You decide who in whose hands it is safe to have this. You decide. And anyone who doesn't toe your line, right now in Venezuela, we have a situation where the president of that country, General called Maduro, is no longer there. He's no longer president, right? Now, the person who clearly is struggling to take his place has been supported 100% by the U.S. What does that tell you? They're still fighting.
Yep.
They're still fighting. Now, what do they think that is? When you want to extend your sphere of influence in such a manner, how very different are you from these people that you keep castigating?
Exactly. Really no difference. And in some, if somebody could actually analyze it even further, to say that you're probably worse in terms of tactics. It may be subtle, it may be, but it
Tell me
would
what's
be
subtle
worse.
about it.
No, subtle, not in the way in which they go about it, but then, saying it differently as per what they're really doing. But if somebody wants to look at it right in the eye, they can see exactly what is being done. And of course, it is much worse because you come in like a wolf in sheep's clothing, purporting to be one thing, where we can actually see right through what you actually are.
It worked for a while when America was presented as the one nation that fought for the democracy of the world. But if you understand that they've also been responsible for overthrowing people who one could argue are democratically elected. So we then need to redefine this democracy, because it's a democracy according to the person who's speaking. And it's democracy according to what suits them and what will be of benefit to
Their
them.
version of democracy.
Yes.
Their interpretation of democracy. So US President Donald Trump addressed a media conference this morning. Of course, he was flanked by senior members of his administration. The vice president was there, the foreign secretary was there as well, and the generals were there. And this is what he said.
As long as I'm president of the United States, Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Good morning. I'm pleased to inform you the American people should be extremely grateful and happy. No Americans were harmed in last night's attack by the Iranian regime. We suffered no casualties. All of our soldiers are safe, and only minimal damage was sustained at our military bases. Our great American forces are prepared for anything. Iran appears to be standing down, which is a good thing for all parties concerned and a very good thing for the world. No American or Iraqi lives were lost because of the precautions taken, the dispersal of forces, and an early warning system that worked very well. I salute the incredible skill and courage of America's men and women in uniform. For far too long, all the way back to 1979 to be exact, nations have tolerated Iran's destructive and destabilizing behavior in the Middle East and beyond. Those days are over. Iran has been the leading sponsor of terrorism, and their pursuit of nuclear weapons threatens the civilized world. We will never let...
This 1979 really, really pains America.
It does.
completely.
And it's not something they're going to let go of
Yes.
for a long time.
You notice how the interesting way in which he began his address? He began his address with reading the headline. For as long as I am president, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon.
Why did he seem...
Good morning.
Right.
It's
He
like
wanted
he had
to
the
start
headlines.
off- he seemed pained reading this. He seemed...
He was more out of breath. Than
Yeah,
pain.
he was out of breath.
I
He
think
was
Trump
not
is
his
just
normal...
basically a bad teleprompter reader. He's focusing so much on trying to follow the words in the teleprompter
As opposed to
that he's
this-
not even thinking. I think he just allow him. From this point, he should go to do like what our Kenyan presidents do. Finish, wacha nimalize hii nimeandikiwa, and then
alafu
now,
wacha niwaambie.
then now I can talk to you. Right? That's what he should have done. Just finish it and then now come and say, look, this is where we are. So there's also a call to action. He's calling on the other partners to the Iran deal. Remember, the Iran deal was signed by the Iran, USA, European Union. There's Russia, China, UK, France, and Germany. So he's also talking to them and telling them, you guys, we need to really come together and isolate this chap.
It was communism that was the common enemy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it was the reason why they got involved in the fight between North and South Korea. I mean, Vietnam, was it not?
Yes.
There were no American lives actually being threatened at that point in time. But they took the position that they were the ones who were going to save the world from communism. Now, that war didn't go very well for America. It didn't. Because you are fighting people. You have gone in using conventional warfare in a terrain that these fellows know better than you. And they are fighting as guerrillas. I mean, the likelihood of winning such a war is really very, very slim.
Gomu.
That's one. Two, if you look at the issues they've had in Latin America, from Cuba, let's start with Cuba. Go to any of those Latin American countries and you'll find that at some point they were very pro-Western, they were Western-leaning, but these countries were led by dictators who treated their people in the worst possible way. So, of course, who do you think they were going to turn to if there were people who were opposing them and they were being supported by people who are called communists? They were going to turn in that direction.
Yeah.
Because these are the people who provided them with help. And they were preaching a gospel of egalitarianism. They were saying people would get a better chance at having better lives as opposed to a few individuals controlling everything.
Right.
Now, this is something that has always puzzled me. Because I've always viewed America as one of those countries that has some of the most serious human resource you can actually think of in terms of knowledge, in terms of invention. I mean, they've been a world leader without a shadow of a doubt. And they've been a world leader in thinkers as well. Now, one of the key individuals who were fundamental to say that Vietnam was a guy called Robert McNamara. McNamara, I think, was it World Bank or IMF? He was a numbers cruncher, really. Now, when you put this man in charge of a war, and this is a guy who looks at figures, figures are easy to determine and look at because they're clean, they're clinical. But there's not just the human element, but the aftermath of that. Now, even as we speak, that Vietnam demon has never actually left America, as we speak. And this is it was the Indonesian War, Indo-Asian. It began in 1955, around then. The time the Americans were getting involved is in the 70s. Now, you're getting into a war that has been going on for 20 years. Now, you bring in new dynamics into it. Okay, eventually we had peace. But the repercussions, forget Vietnam. They've sorted themselves out. They're getting on with their lives, still have their skirmishes. But in America, some of the protests, the flower children, the hippie movement, a lot of it arose out of that war in Vietnam.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
And then after that, you had what you call the baby boomers, meaning an entire generation changed. And with their changing, it also helped change America. And it took it in a certain direction. Now, there are those who argue, this is a different debate of the benefit of that. We know how far communism went with their ideals and their way of things. With the Berlin Wall, with Boris, not Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeltsin.
Yeltsin, not Johnson.
Yes.
Boris the vodka.
Yes. We saw what happened to the USSR. Okay? It disintegrated, and it appears like it's still disintegrating. Russia is still trying to hold on to power. But we see how that's playing out. Now, if you look at those actions, in my opinion, what seems to have steadily happened with the decision, the foreign policy decision making of America, instead of America getting stronger, it has actually gotten weaker. Because if you are involved in a war where the optics are that you didn't win, note, I'm not saying they lost.
But they didn't win.
You didn't win. Then you get involved in movements in your backyard, Latin America, and the forces you support don't win. And then you support regimes in the Middle East. You support regimes on this continent. And they all seem to have the same characteristics. They are dictators, the worst possible kind of dictators you can actually come across.
You go to Iraq once early in the 90s.
Yes.
You come out not necessarily victorious.
Yes, exactly.
And you go back.
Yes.
And you spend how many years again there? You spend over 10 years,
Yeah,
over a
and
decade in that country.
tell us what it is you've spent. How exactly are you growing stronger? When with every incursion, you seem not to be what you say you are.
Obviously growing weaker as you go along and not realizing it, but saying that in every time there was a conflict or an opportunity to then show this said strength, there was also exactly, but if anything, getting weaker over time.
The strength is there. There's no question about it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
But in terms of the dominance and the influence, that has then gone down on the ladder.
I want to juxtapose America, say, with the UK, for instance, all right? These were outright colonialists and imperialists. No apologies.
From them or you?
Outright. There's no pretense about it.
Yeah.
But look at what happened after the countries that they had colonized got independence. They are buddies. They get along.
Alliances.
They even have a commonwealth.
They do.
Yes. And they're doing very well with it. Now, it arises from something fundamental. Here on this continent, when the Britons and the Europeans came to colonize, they actually wanted to live. In America and in Canada, the policy was extermination. They wanted to wipe out the natives, literally wipe out. And it was a policy. They did almost anything they could to actually wipe them out. If they didn't, it was just per chance.
Right.
Now, that is a mindset that one should bear in mind when one is talking about any sphere of influence that would come from that part of the world.
And it's interesting that you talk about wipeout, because they actually went to the extent of breeding with the Native Americans so that they would then reduce the potency of the Native American heritage in the country, and it actually worked. So you had the men then who would essentially breed with the Native American women and try to cut off the potency. Dilute. So you get to the point whereby they had removed them completely, where now you can actually count how many Sioux Americans you have, how many Navajos you have. You can count them in the US now. And it was something that they actually did and made sure that the people knew what they were doing when they entered into what would be called relationships with the Native Americans. It was not because they liked them. It was because they wanted to get rid of them.
U.S. President Donald Trump has addressed a media conference at the steps of the White House this morning, flanked by senior members of his administration, including the Vice President, the Secretary for, what do you call that? Secretary of State. Yes, the Secretary of State, and of course the senior military commanders. And he talked about the relations, the unfolding relations with Iran. He said the attacks by the Iranians on the bases in Iraq yesterday did not harm any American soldier or any American personnel. But he's also calling for a complete end to the Iran deal. And this is what he was telling the other countries that are involved in that deal.
The time has come for the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Russia, and China to recognize this reality. They must now break away from the remnants of the Iran deal, or JCPOA. And we must all work together toward making a deal with Iran that makes the world a safer and more peaceful place. We must also make a deal that allows Iran to thrive and prosper and take advantage of its enormous untapped potential. Iran can be a great country. Peace and stability cannot prevail in the Middle East as long as Iran continues to foment violence, unrest, hatred, and war. The civilized world must send a clear and unified message to the Iranian regime. Your campaign of terror, murder, mayhem will not be tolerated any longer. It will not be allowed to go forward.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So Trump wants a new Iran deal, but signed by Trump.
Right.
Forget this Obama thing.
Let's agree, but let me tell you how we're going to do it.
Yes.
Essentially.
You guys, let's cancel that other deal. It's not working. It's not working. Let's now do a new one.
But it follows a trail of many things that the U.S. has opted out of when the rest of the world has followed in. For instance, the Kyoto Protocol. If you look at the ICC, are American signatories to the ICC?
Nope. Neither are
Precisely.
they signatories of the Kyoto Protocol.
Yes, so they will decide what they are party to and what they're not party to.
It's good for the rest of you. This is the stance that they've always taken. It's good for the rest
works
of
for you guys.
and we also see the benefit of it. However, our economic prowess is a little bit more important to us than maybe it is to you. So we're going to sit here and be involved in these negotiations. However, what we agree is not going to apply to us, but we'll facilitate these discussions for you then to agree. We will also recommend things that you can actually do to make this work for you. But as far as then these things become binding on us, sorry,
No.
but we're not going to sign.
No.
But for you, carry on.
I don't think they do anything that's different from what other countries do. It's the way they go about it.
It's the way they go about it.
There's an in-your-face attitude towards it all,
Patronizing almost.
almost. I thought you were going to say always. You said all that. When you went all,
She's
Well,
being
like, oh, you're
diplomatic.
like, yeah, okay, she's on the right track.
Yes. That's what I think most people find grating. It's like you don't even pretend to give someone the option that they can choose. For
Right.
heaven's sake.
Even pretend that that's what you're doing.
Yes,
You
that's
know?
what diplomacy is all about. okay?
Absolutely.
We know very well we're not going to do it, but
At least try lie to my
into it.
face
look into
then, you
it.
know?
Yes, but we're not doing it. But we look into
Talking
it.
about Americans disrupting the world, there's an American who got married into the royal family, and I think she's really, really impacted that royal family.
She's shaken things up.
Completely. Of course, you know the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. This is Harry and his wife, Meghan Markle, right?
Yes.
So they released a statement a couple of hours ago saying that they intend to step back as senior members of the royal family and move to America.
Can you step away from the royal family? Can you say, okay, I
This
handed
is
my
what they said.
resignation from the family?
After many months of reflection and internal discussions, we have chosen to make a transition this year in starting to carve out a progressive new role with this institution. We intend to step back as senior members of the royal family and work to become financially independent while continuing to fully support Her Majesty the Queen.
It's the babe.
It's with your encouragement, particularly over the last few years, that we feel prepared to make this adjustment. So this is where the issue is. We now plan to balance our time between the United Kingdom and North America, continuing to honor our duty to the Queen, the Commonwealth, and our patronages.
By the way, this isn't going to be the first time this has happened. The first time was around 1936.
With Grace Kelly?
No. You're
The
talking
Queen
about
will remember-
Monaco.
Oh, that's
Monaco.
right.
She married a gentleman who was then the king.
The King of Monaco, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now I'm talking about Edward VIII. Okay, Emperor,
The Queen's
King
uncle.
Emperor, Willis Simpson. Wallace, actually, is how
Wallace.
it's pronounced. The problem was not that she was American; she was a divorcee, and the Church of England frowned on it. Now the net result was that this guy was supposed to be king, just so that you understand. And had he not married this woman, Queen Elizabeth would not have been king.
Yep.
Queen, rather. Sorry.
Yeah.
So because he did something that was not considered proper, he abdicated.
He said, Timkai nayo.
Mi napenda udem.
So it's between me, it's the throne or my love. I choose love.
Yes.
It's
Now,
a beautiful romantic story
Eric.
and he signed what they call an instrument of
of abdication.
Yes, he did. Now, Second time around, they're going to say, any time a royal marries an American, look at what on earth happens.
That is exactly what I was going to say, because it's a storm in the British teacup. This is what is happening now. You bring this American and she has shaken up everything. Here you are thinking
let's
a
be
nice
real.
girl
Harry
brought her
was
to the...
never going to be king. Is never going to be king.
And he's always had the rebel status from time.
He had a chance before William, got married, before William got the first son, before William got that. Hey,
then he got his second son, forget about it. So he's not going to be king anyway.
Let the man live his life.
So let him go to Canada.
America. Let the man.
She's actually Canadian.
They
said North America, and Canada is, sometimes
the north,
there, right?
Okay. So they're going up there. But however, the Buckingham Palace responded with just 2 paragraphs. Discussions with the Duke and the Duchess are at an early stage. Now, this thing of him telling us, after internal deliberations, that's theirs. We do not know. The Queen is not aware. We understand their desire to take a different approach to these, but these complicated issues that will take time to work through. Basically, the Queen is saying,
all these other people are talking nonsense.
Nonsense.
Let's sit down and discuss.
I don't care. You want to?
That's your problem.
Yes. How do you mean I'm going to step back as being a senior member of the royal family?
How do you say that? Like I was the first son, but I'm not going to be the first son anymore.
The bit I liked is they want to be financially independent.
Independent? How? Which who give you money? Which money are you using?
The man wants to go to Hollywood.
Hollywood is good.
And he can go back to acting. Essentially, this
is what they're doing. This is it's an interesting one. Of course, we're going to see how it unfolds. Already, the love between the two brothers has not been so rosy, right?
So rosy. This is true.
And this is after not Angela. After
Meghan.
Yeah. Americans coming in. So we have been looking at what's happening in the headlines. Of course, this is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Remember, you can download the Standard e-paper app from Google Play Store and Apple App Store. Just one subscription fee. You can choose either weekly or monthly or annually. Then you get to access all of Standard Group's publications. This month, this is the first Thursday of the month. Is it first or second? Second Thursday of the month, right?
Yes.
You get the free copy of the Travelogue magazine, Jione Kenya, a fresh start. That's the headline on the Travelogue magazine. Of course, it takes a look at all matters of tourism and the tourism industry in Kenya. Very many places that you can go and travel and attend. This is what comes out. Of course, in the next hour, we're going to have more and more conversations. Let's take a look at what's happening on the traffic and then continue. Remember, we are live streaming the show on Facebook, Spice FM KE, and on Twitter at Spice FM KE, and also, of course, on our YouTube channel, Spice FM KE, and the website www.spicefm.co.ke. Good morning.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
All right, let's take a look at what is happening outside of Nairobi right now. Let's take step into Kisumu City today. Clear traffic from Kisumu through Obote Road to Bandani with clear roads all the way to the airport. No problem there. Smooth and swift flow of traffic from Ahero Town to Nyamasarai U-turn with smooth continuous traffic all the way in and out of the city, in and outbound. Taking a road down to Mombasa right now. Of course, it has already started coming off of the ferry and entering into the city center. Quite a bit of traffic there this morning. Moy Avenue is serving up some major vibes today. Remember, this is in Mombasa. Apart from that, nothing much happening. I will let you know in a short while what is going on. An accident on the Kisumu Kericho Highway. Trailer has overturned at Chepsion in Kericho. No police at the scene right now. Hoping for that to happen in a short while and clear things up. Taking a look back in the capital city, and Mombasa Road has already built up. It's bumper to bumper from Cabanas all the way to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. That's not happening anytime soon. Coming off of Thika Road as well, it is serving it up, getting to the Pangani underpass. We'll see what's happening in other parts of the city in a short while, but for now, it's traffic hour, so you're going to have to sit it out and be patient.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Nyeri Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's also Kenya's biggest conversation. Thank you very much for tuning in. Good morning and how are you doing? This is Eric Latif. We have Nduoko and CT Muga. We are broadcasting from Nairobi on 94.4. We are in Malindi 97.7, Nyeri 90.9, Eldoret 96.7, Nakuru 96.0, 102.5 in Kisumu, 87.9 in Mombasa. Also, always remember, this show is available on our digital platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and also on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. CT Muga. Let's take a look at the state of our job market.
Kenya is always in the news for all sorts of things, but, well, what often hogs the headlines is our athletic prowesses. Like now, we have a volleyball team that's doing really very well in the African competitions. It looks like we are one step away from the Tokyo Olympics. But of interest, we were in the papers not too long ago, Kenya as a nation, for something which was actually academic but nefariously so. Kenyans were accused of holding or having a hub where people, individuals within the country, actually could go about ensuring that someone who didn't live within the country, but mostly in the UK, could actually provide the sort of papers one required to attain certification for higher degrees. Now, what is of interest, and most people don't know, is that it isn't as though what they were doing in Kenya is actually even considered illegal, for the simple reason that there is a platform where one could actually not just apply, but register to be able to do such work. Now, if you're talking innovation, I think that would be right about near the top of the list of innovative. But what I found interesting was that how it is someone who has gone to college, has left university, cannot get anything that you call formal employment, but uses whatever talent they acquired at university, meaning there's something useful that they did acquire, to be able to fend and to provide a living for themselves. That's innovation. But moving forward, there's always been this debate again in Kenya that there are jobs available. It's just that people who graduate specifically from university are choosy about jobs. There's a friend of mine who, in answer to some tweet where someone was complaining about how he was a university graduate but was being forced to push a cart, what we call a mkokoteni. And he responded by explaining that there was a gentleman who passed away as one of Kenya's most wealthiest men. He started off as a teacher in a training college in Kiambu, came to Nairobi, and he's credited as having been one of the first people to actually innovate and create this pushcart that we call a mkokoteni. Now, he would lease them to traders who needed to ferry their goods and couldn't afford a lorry or a van. Now, with time, the numbers became so great that he couldn't keep up. And it is said that this gentleman then looked for a young man from his home town and brought him to assist. Whether this is true or not is not the case, but what is true is this. 20 years ago, our rate of unemployment in this country was considered to be 9.92%. In 2018, it was 9.31. Now, the figures may not seem to really vary that much, but the population in 1998 and the population 20 years later are very different. So even if you had said the unemployment rate was 5%, the numbers would be staggering. what is the way forward is the question one would ask. And the way forward is clear. It is not possible for people to find employment if there's no money in the country. It is not possible for there to be employment if businesses are not encouraged to flourish. It is not possible for there to be employment or jobs if people do not have the wherewithal to create these jobs. The president of this country has set many task forces and many commissions. It's about time he created a turnaround team whose job is specifically just that, with clear indicators, clear markers, turning around this situation of joblessness in Kenya and ensuring that there are jobs available just as there are thriving businesses available.
A dream team of sorts.
Of
Or
sorts.
you want to call it a turnaround team?
Call it a dream team. I
Jobs
think
revival team.
you are at no. It will sound like it's,
Sounds like a church.
Yeah, or a unit within Kenyatta National Hospital. No. You can
Revival and hope for the youth ministries team
Of Kenya.
Of Kenya.
You can call it anything that points at giving hope, but here we need to go a little beyond hope. You need to not just provide hope, but you also need to provide solutions that people can relate to. Because if you say you're going to provide solutions, for instance, we had a youth program and a ton of money was allocated to the Ministry of Youth for this very purpose, for this very thing that we're discussing here. And if you look at the blueprint, it was an excellent plan. We have X number of young people who don't have jobs. Why don't we set up something that could work?
Well, they can access financing, they can access
all sorts of training. It was a package deal, and a really good package deal. It didn't work, not because the plan was bad, but you get the impression those who were supposed to implement it never had any intentions of implementing it. Because whatever it is they set out to do wasn't the most complicated thing on the planet. One, if you take, for instance, the youth groups that they formed in almost every region, whose task was to help with basic things like, say, cleanliness of a town or a city, ensuring that if you have a program for, say, planting trees, they are involved in it. Whatever it is that you consider now, many people don't even know that National Youth for the longest time had actually evolved to the point where they were not just youths hanging around in those lovely green uniforms. No, they had specific jobs. They could help you build bridges. They could help you maintain law and order. Anything that required...
There were various units, actually.
Yes.
Mechanized units.
And they were stationed in
units.
different places.
Different places,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Now, and it started off when you're young. So when you get to a certain age, you could actually be branched off to different departments within the government. You didn't stay in the youth service forever and ever and ever. No, you moved on.
You grew up.
You grew up and you moved on, and your training enabled you to find a place where you could actually eventually end up. One thing that I've seen in the recent past, I saw this more so last year, was that very many government installations and institutions no longer hire private guards. They have national youth doing the job. And when you look at what they do, you get the impression, you ask, why didn't they do this earlier?
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, why didn't they do this earlier?
You go to the airport and you find many of the people who are patrolling parking and the other public places are just the National Youth Service officers.
It's interesting because previously, I mean, and I think we all understand that, essentially it's been said that the government's job is not actually to create jobs. Their job is to create an environment that then allows job creation to thrive. Now, you can't continue having the perennial problem over and over again. As you were talking about those figures, 9.3 and 9.2, but then you've had population growth. It cannot be that number has remained constant over this time, and you have increased
Actually, it's a terrible thing.
It's a horrible thing because the
if
number
in 1990
has
it was 9.92%.
and we are at 9.3 in 2020.
That's not a good thing.
It isn't. It really isn't. So at this point where we say that the government's job, sometimes that role then must change. Then there must be something that will be focused and deliberate to make sure that we actually are. Yes, we've whether you've made a conducive environment, but then maybe you need to then take a step further, looking at the numbers that we are looking at the situation where there is no money as per, where do we expect the citizens then to go for solutions? So in this case, it's just not creating a conducive environment. It's going a step further at actually delivering solutions in terms of what is going to be done. Because you can say, even it's like a woman who's going to get pregnant. Yeah, I have created this sustainable environment, but you got to take a step beyond that to do something about it, so that this the conception can take place. You got to do something more, and that's what we're saying. You have to take a further step. Absolutely, you can't just say, "I am here and I have the conducive environment."
So what are
do
you
something
promoting?
more.
You've said it.
Let me arrange myself. No.
Siti, when you talk about this task force or this special team that you would like the president to create, what exactly should they do? I mean, what do you expect them to do to ensure that things change from what is currently happening?
Actually,
and what's the expertise that you seek in this?
There's something that what
force?
gave me this idea was what the DPP was talking about yesterday. They have something which is akin to a task force, which it's a multi-agency unit where they work towards the same goal, because his office can't actually do everything. They have to work with the central bank, they have to work with the DCI, they have to, that sort of thing. Now, up until now, the OP arguably was supposed to have under its ambit units that are supposed to, for instance, oversee parastatals, make sure that they're efficient, the efficiency monitoring unit, things like that. I don't know what on earth they do. No, I honestly don't.
They monitor efficiency.
Yeah, of course they do.
Yeah.
Of course they do. And that's why we have fertilizer that grows weeds instead of killing them.
Yeah.
And that's why we have locusts that we've known are coming for. I mean, all I'm saying is we
They
have
monitor.
all they
monitor as these things happen.
So they monitor the locusts.
Yeah.
You actually don't need to monitor locusts.
Efficiency monitoring
But
unit.
monitoring also, whether you want to call it that or not, also comes with an element of evaluation. And now that evaluation is what is taken forward for you to take that information and actually do something with it. I think, unfortunately, what happens with a lot of these task forces that you call them, they stop at monitoring and they just be looking at this thing,
No, they
hoping
do
that it will
monitor.
morph into
They do
something
monitor,
else.
but if you look at the activities of many such organizations, not this particular one, but many supervisory bodies in this country, they become extortion units. Instead of doing what they're supposed to do, all they do is come in with a big stick and threaten the hell out of you.
Yeah.
With the understanding that that threat can go away.
Yeah.
Now, this is why we have a situation where this has continued. Now, if you had a unit that, in my opinion, seeks to ensure that all these wonderful plans that these ministries have to help the youth, to empower the youth, to whatever it is, that they actually do what they do. And this particular unit was attached to the officer, was also in this unit with the DPP and the DCI. You know why? If it isn't being done, you'll be investigated. If you are found to be culpable, you will be prosecuted. Now, if they work as a standalone unit, then it makes it far more difficult. Because then the process of ensuring that the outcomes that are desired actually take place become tedious. Because we're still applying for this. Oh, we're still doing this. We're still doing this. 5 years will go by and they're still doing this.
So we don't need to bring in new people. We don't need to actually restructure.
No.
Then we already have that unit.
No.
The presidential delivery, the PDU, right?
Yes. But
based not in Wales, but OP and State House.
But what do they actually do?
Ensure delivery.
We know what they're supposed to do, but what do they do? Why have I mentioned the DCI's office and the DPP's office? Because one investigates, the other one prosecutes. You see, we've had malpractice in many of these units where we are told what they're supposed to do, but you never really see what they do. You never really hear what they do. Like, for instance, I know we have a money laundering unit, isn't it?
Anti.
The anti bit is very, very important if we're to understand what they do.
Anti-money laundering.
But you do realize that I said that deliberately. The money laundering unit, I think, is part of the Central Bank of Kenya, if I'm not wrong. The activities of such a unit, the anti-money laundering, they usually don't advertise what they do.
No.
But I think they're fairly effective. Like now, it becomes very impossible for you to move large amounts of money without explaining.
Without setting up.
Where the problem arises is that we then have these units called banks. Okay? Now, they become a real bottleneck because they now will take it to the nth. Instead of simply understanding that these are the requirements and once that has been responded to, you should move forward. Depending on who you find at the desk that day, nothing will move.
We'll move.
Yes. And you'll be taken round in circles, taken left, taken right, taken left. Now, the unit I'm speaking of would be able to pick up such things and investigate and find out where exactly. Because the moment you have someone who's not doing what they're doing, that's a bottleneck. And the very thing that you're trying to achieve will have been interfered with.
The Presidential Delivery Unit, President's Delivery Unit, is tasked with monitoring implementation of Jubilee projects. It's the eye of the President in overseeing timely completion of development projects. So this, they can be tasked with this. They can just be told, you guys, so this is something, well, basically the Ministry of Gender, Youth and Sports, the other ministries are told, this is what we need you to do.
Okay.
PDU just monitors. PDU is not
right.
That's
why
it's
I
the one
said,
that's coordinating.
Eric,
what are you doing
You
at
attach
Treasury?
them to the DCI and DPP.
So they...
Yes, so that they say, look, this is wrong.
And then they feed that information.
Or, for instance, every once in a while, you find that the office of the government Auditor General comes up with reports. Now, these reports have been used by the DCI, they've been used by security to actually ensure that certain people are brought to book. Now, I am simply saying, for instance, we had this fiasco, the irrigation scheme.
Oh, I was about to say which fiasco because there seems to be quite a list that we can choose
Have
from.
you heard of anyone being arrested?
Has there been any question after this Israeli gentleman left?
No, I'm beginning with the rest because what went wrong is clear.
Probably it's still under investigation. Like the DPP told us yesterday. I take my time. I bid my time.
He does. But there is a unit that's supposed to deal with these sort of things and they are funded to deal with these sort of things. The length of time the DPP's office takes to investigate, if these people did their job, they would furnish the DPP's office with
the information that they needed. And this is what
because
I'm saying.
That's what they do.
Because the information is not supposed to be so that it can be said, yes, the Ndu Eric task force have actually been monitoring and they've been oversighting. You're supposed to actually take that information and it is supposed to translate into a solution. And that's what we're saying now. To get it from where you say, this is what we've been able to see from around the country. These are the pockets where we have lapses. This is information you now gather and give to somebody else then to be able to do something. Now, if we're talking about unemployment in the country and we're saying trying to create jobs, they know where they should be able to know where the needs are. So that you even feed into the education system so that people are getting trained in certain areas so they come back and then they feed into society where things are needed to move the country forward. So it's not just about providing a conducive environment. It's actually about taking the information and resources that you have, giving it to the bodies who find it necessary to use that information and then translating it into something tangible that can be used. And then we see those numbers drop from the 9% that we see today.
It's that simple, right? It's 20 minutes past 7 o'clock.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
I'm going to be referring to the office of the DPP quite a lot this morning, and the reason is this. That office and that of the DCI are in the media so much so that you have a fairly clear idea what they do. The other office you have a clear idea what they do is the Anti-Corruption Commission. The other office that you know of their function in the Central Bank of Kenya. The other office that you know of, but for a completely different reason, is the Association of Bankers.
And upon that premise, you understand what CT has a problem with. In case you were wondering.
Yes.
Now, if you look at another organization called, say, the Teacher Service Commission, the news that we got or we've been receiving of late is that they've been colluding with Kuppet or Cuppet to derail NAT. Interestingly, one organization seems to have a preponderance of secondary school teachers as their membership, the other one primary school. But primary school membership is actually larger. There are more.
Yep.
Okay. Now, but you know what they do. You're very clear about what they do. Now we're talking about a situation where the university has the national universities have a looming strike, a strike in the offing. We are clear. We know what the unions do. We know what they've been fighting for. You cannot say that you have a unit whose job is to monitor and ensure that the things that the government has set out to do is done, and yet we know of things that ought to have been done, and cases where the complete opposite of what should be done was done, and yet there are no outcomes. It's a disaster, it's a failure, it's a loss to the country, yet. Because every time there's a problem, it's not that the government doesn't have a unit that's supposed to look into it. They do. But someone slept on the job. They actually do. There are so many of these units, sometimes, in fact, you actually get lost. Just yes, Eric.
What's not clear to me, and I'm still trying to get into exactly what you're saying. What's not clear to me is what you want the president to do so that youth can get employment opportunities or job opportunities.
The government already has a plan for the youth.
Yes.
They even created a ministry for it.
They have a ministry for youth.
Yes,
they have a youth
do.
fund. They
and
have the National Youth
but
Service.
The problem of youth unemployment persists.
Now,
it's not as though it's moving. It's moving.
If you look
south.
If you look at the Big Four agenda, among the things that it seeks to do is actually do that. With manufacturing as a key pillar of the Big Four, manufacturing means that when you're expanding manufacturing, you're expanding job opportunities. Job opportunities, the vast majority of Kenyan people who are employable are the youth. This is going to sort it out.
The number of people who are unemployed,
and like we said earlier, the government's job is to create a conducive environment.
It can't be absorbed just by industrializing only.
It is one of. Food security will ensure that there is job creation, because food security means growing the food. When there is food production, if food production is working, if food marketing is working, if transport of that, if food security pillar works, job creation.
Eric, we know that cyclically, whenever you have the sort of deluge we've had with lots and lots of water and floods, what follows is a drought. It's looming right now.
Come May, June, we're going to see the numbers are going to start piling up as they did last time.
The positive thing that I've been reading in the media that has happened is that millers and traders are buying maize directly from farmers. They're not going to the National and Cereals Board. It was in the papers day before yesterday. That to me is good progress, meaning the bottleneck has been bypassed. Now, that's a state corporation that's supposed to look into this. People have figured out these guys aren't helping our cause. So they've gone round.
Let's go straight.
Yes. Now, have you heard of any plans that we have to ensure that during that dry season, what locusts have not eaten and what the water hasn't washed away, what it is that the government is going to do? You may hear of a plan. And then we'll be told of people dying in various parts of the country because there isn't enough food. This is not a story that I am inventing. It happens so often, it becomes the norm. It's like, so which part of the country do you think people are going to die in this year from drought? Now, any unit that is doing the job that this particular unit you keep mentioning is supposed to do would have guaranteed that the department whose job or whose mandate it is to ensure that such things are taken care of. And if it isn't, they are brought to book. Because you're asked a simple question. This is your job. You're supposed to do it. What happened? Meanwhile, be explaining it as you're given a partial scholarship.
Right.
I believe some of the work that's actually done by some of these units, the PDU, the Cabinet's Office and all the others, as part of the reason why you see the president bringing out some issues or taking action. When the president comes out and tells
this is not in the president's hand.
The agriculture
he's done his bit.
This is what
Eric,
I
he's done his bit.
It's because the others have told him this is how far
he has done his bit. He has done his bit. This one does not land at his doorstep.
So we already have agencies that now should be doing their work.
This unit, the turnaround unit that I'm speaking about, which already exists under a different name in the OP, would ensure that these things are done. Eric, the number of things which are not done within this government of ours are so many. You would actually think that their mandate is not to do things.
For a myriad of reasons.
What are the reasons? I would like to understand. Because if you just look at an individual who has been tasked with to do a certain thing, and for some reason in the private sector it works very well, the motivation could be that, you're going to lose your job, my friend, if you don't. In the public sector, when we talk about government, whether you do your job or not, it seems like you're going to be able to hang out there for as long as you can. But let's just be serious.
And that's one of the bottlenecks.
Unfortunately, yeah. But let's be serious. You have a job to do and you don't do it. There are very many consequences as a result of that. So you can imagine a unit that has been mandated with oversight or monitoring and is not handing over critical information to the next person or to the next unit then who's supposed to do something with that information and then have that translate into something tangible that can be used. How is it ever going to happen? Look at what has dogged the agricultural sector for years. Whether we're going to talk about cartels, whether we're going to talk about storage of food, whether we're going to talk about moving from just being able to harvest crop or to make it a sustainable crop so that come rain, literally come sunshine, come drought, you have something that you can depend on for the country. I'm sitting here in a studio with a microphone in front of me and I can see how simple that will be to do just by applying yourself as an individual. Yes, it comes down to individual, but then it also comes down to the institutions that have sat around for so long not doing their
and to
job.
A behemoth called government. Even CT was
This is
telling
the
us the
thing.
other day.
You can sit in government for 40
Government
years and
is
somebody
this
asks
other machine.
you,
So you come in there with all your energy and then you find that this machine actually does move at 2 kilometers per year.
At its own pace.
at its own
Per
pace.
year, right? And you cannot really do much. So you can see, yes, the reason why the president would set up something like the PDU is to say, I'd like to a clear picture, like a dashboard of the progress of the government, how the government is working, delivering all the things that we've said we are going to do. There is a cabinet office. The cabinet office's job is to what? Is to ensure that all the ministries understand what the cabinet decisions, the decisions that come out of the cabinet. We have the head of public service, who's the secretary to the cabinet. Take instructions of the cabinet, go and relay those instructions to the public service, ensure that things are working. Things don't work. The government has tried to come up with, even with RRIs, rapid result initiatives, telling us in the next 90 days, we are going to ensure this and the other happens. Why they don't happen is because of this entire thing called the bureaucracy called government. And it's not unique to Kenya.
It's interesting because then we see that there's certain kinds of leaders who come in and under their leadership, certain things happen or certain things move forward. Once they're out of power, once they're out of leadership, we go back to literally square one. And how are we going to have a progressive government or progressive governance if we don't have any kind of follow through? Unfortunately, I'm still looking at the numbers and it's actually quite pitiful that 20 years ago we were at 9.3 and now we're at 9.6 in terms of unemployment. And we keep talking about it being one of the major things that the government is going to deal with. Every year, every manifesto, every election promise, unemployment is something that we're going to take care of. Last year, there were external partners who came in and held the hand of the government and said, look, we're going to help you in the name of the MasterCard Foundation. Just that. How much did they asked, how much they said that they're going to pledge with the help of private sector? 30 billion shillings over the next 5 years. And they're going to make employment favorable for 5 million young people in Kenya. Put down in paper, documented, accepted by public and private sector. And they said, and this was in June 2019, and they said by June 2020, they still have 6 months. At least you would have seen the rollout of such happen, whereby the first batch of the 5 million youth in Kenya would have been affected. Now, recently, we saw a report that came out from the same foundation who said that they were still looking for cooperation with the same thing we're talking about now from CT in terms of information that they need, which you can't go get yourself. It has to be something that they give to you because obviously you're trying to still maintain a relationship and obviously to say that there's some things that you can't get for yourself the governments give you. They're still trying to get that out. So where does it stop? There are individuals who...
So there's already stuff that's happening.
There are things that are happening.
There are things that are happening, and these are things that the government has embraced. There are things that the government has actually even taken the initiative and sought partners. They've brought in partners. The government is doing stuff. What I'm not getting is what CT is saying, that the president needs to do more. What more is it that he wants?
No.
So you come up with a task force.
Excuse me, I didn't say more.
What do you want him to do?
What I said was he needs to create what you call a turnaround team. Now, you came up and said that there's a unit that seems to do that. They seem to be running around, not turning around.
Not turning around.
We need
And
to
that's
see
what
the
I
numbers.
wanted you to tell me.
And this is
When you say turn around, what exactly are you looking for?
This is
what
not
competency
difficult.
are you looking
no,
for?
No, not competency.
What
Eric,
areas
I
of
am
turnaround?
actually not
Where
going
do you
around.
want them to focus? All those things are what I'd like you to answer. Let's take a look at traffic and then you can come back and discuss this. It's 29 minutes to 8 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, looking at what's happening in Nairobi this morning, there is a trailer that stalled on the Kikuyu bypass since yesterday. This morning, it's still there as of 7:30. Of course, wanting to get the trucks off the road and having them use the routes that are available to them. So that has happened. If you're approaching or leaving Kikuyu, it's going to take you some time because that trailer is still there across the road. Yeah, so some time is quite a lot of time in terms of getting out of the way. Thika Road is serving up some traffic this morning. If anything, while you sit in traffic, you can appreciate the wonderful grass and maintenance of flowers and shrubs on the middle and the side of the road while you sit out in traffic. The county government is doing a good job there. All right, getting off and onto Mombasa Road, still moving along, but quite slowly. Let's see what we can do to get out there faster. Right now, it's going to look like it's just sitting there. Thika Road, again, we've said Utali towards Muthaiga is slow, not moving. We know why the jam has started as far as Kabete, Safaricom, all the way down is because of this trailer that has stalled in the road. All right. Coming off of Langata Road, also not so much of a problem. We're going to join with Bagadi Way in a short while and it should be fine. Unfortunately, there's a school bus stuck at a ditch at the entrance of the 5-star estate in South Sea, and that's causing massive tailback and jam in all associated Panya routes, as they say, and leading all the way back to Mombasa Road. Until that is moved, it's going to cause a problem.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
25 to 8, this is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. This hour, we're talking about unemployment, especially youth
Mornings
unemployment.
done right.
City Muga is saying
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
What I said was there's a turnaround team. You see, the teams we've had, whether they're monitoring, whether they're observing, but we have the status quo. Nothing seems to change. There's no turnaround. What we have constantly is just the discussion around it. Why I said I'm going to be referring to the DPP's office often today is because that's one office that's clearly showing what turnaround means. It's not just, if you look at today's papers and some of the names that are coming up for investigation, those aren't names you thought you'd seen a very long time. In fact, you'd even forgotten some of these people exist. And if you knew they existed, you didn't connect them with the sort of investigations that the DPP's office sometimes carry out with the DCI. Now, when I say turnaround, it means there's been the issue of corruption in this country. And they have a plan, and as per the statements the DPP made yesterday, it is clear what they plan to do. They are not rushing the matter. They are going about it methodically and ensuring. Look at the way you had this issue of prosecutors who are essentially policemen. They said, no. According to the Constitution, what we have in play, we actually need to have lawyers being prosecutors. Now, it was activated, but the one thing wasn't done. They were not degazetted. So, which meant they could still function as prosecutors. So, he degazettes it. That's turnaround. You then have a situation where he has a case, and he says it's been thoroughly investigated and he's taking it to court. Every conversation he had, they didn't go and arrest the governor of Nairobi. They said, no, we are going to go to court to seek clarification on this. Meaning, turned around on two fronts. He is actually following the law. You can see, he's saying, we are going to ensure that the law is abided by, but we will do that by example because we will follow it. We will go to court to get a determination. Once we get a determination, according to us, this person is in breach of his bail terms. Okay, but we're going to go to court. Now, all I'm saying is, it's visible, you can see it. Let me give you an example of perhaps another ministry that seems to understand what it's doing. It's the Ministry of Transport. Now, I know you're pausing and saying, hey, transport. Yes. From this perspective, if I leave aside any criticism I've had of the SGR, it's not that they've gone anywhere. That's not what I'm discussing today. But they talked about the dry port in Naivasha. They gave you details. They explained to you what it's going to happen, how it's supposed to function. They then inform you this thing is going to move, the railway will get up to this place, meaning you have an idea. This is one of those moments where we're not going to discuss the ferry and the fiasco around it. Okay? I'm going to discuss this one thing that seems to be working. And according to reports that we read, the movement of goods from the port of Mombasa in many ways has actually been smoothened, as we read. Again, I'm leaving aside the complaint that the transporters and the lorry owners have had. But it's something that you can see. And if you care to visit, it is visible. It's actually real. It's not something that someone is just talking about. It's not like those invisible dams that we have all over the country. No, it's not one of those. You see, when someone is turning around something, this thing which is turned around has to be seen. And the process that could be labeled as turned around can actually be seen. Again, let me give you the Ministry of Education. If we leave aside collapsing walls and collapsing schools, look at the effort that is being made to ensure that those who are less advantaged in the community have an opportunity to be educated. It's in the papers. Not once. They keep talking about it. They keep mentioning it. They're telling you new initiative. That, to me, is what you call turnaround. So the issue of are the less fortunate in this country being looked after, their efforts, you can actually see it. Now, when I say turnaround, all these are activities that are being done by different departments and units, but there needs to be somebody who oversees it.
So it's about leadership. Now, okay, if you talk about leadership, then when it comes to provision of employment opportunities for the youth, for the Kenyan population, where do you want this leadership to be?
But there's a ministry that's supposed to do all these things.
What ministry is this? Labor? What ministry? Is it the youth? Is it
but the youth ministry is there to look after these things.
Ministry of Industrialization?
There's no ministry in this country that works alone, Eric. They work in tandem with other ministries depending on what it is they want to do. So even if there's a youth ministry, they will have to work with other units to ensure, look, if you roll out young people and you train them in various skills, of course they'll be deployed to other ministries.
Right.
Not that particular ministry. So you will be working with them. If you have plans for training, again, you as a youth ministry will have to work with ministries that are involved with such things to help you with the training and things like that. Now, these are plans that we already have and we know we have them. But the reason why we keep discussing unemployment every day, it's because what is supposed to be done doesn't get done.
And that's the thing. What is supposed to be done doesn't get done. And it's clear that if you have a plan, then as you plan, you know what is necessary to get this thing done. And once you're able to open up, then you know that it's necessary to fill these positions with people that you can pay to get the job done, whereby then you raise the profile of everything else. It's clear. And that's why they say when you plan, you fail to plan, you plan to fail, something along those lines.
Things, yes.
Right? But that's the thing, really, because then it's obvious that if people are getting their job done, then you'll be able to see.
I'm trying to conceptualize where then we put this team. If we came up with a turnaround team.
The team would be you already told me such a team exists. It's just that it's got a different name than the implementation of turnaround name, the tag that I gave it. But the point I was making is they even have a mandate that's clear. Where does one see them implementing these things? Where? At what point do you say, Good. We've seen. We know what the Auditor General does. We know.
Right, because
Every
unfortunately
year
you
we
can
know.
hear.
We are told we know.
I think a
Unfortunately, you can do
turnaround
so much
team,
work.
the one you're talking about, needs to have people at those executive positions, not somebody who monitors or coordinates from another
No, but
ministry.
somebody who's implementing
So, for
by
example,
way of
if you're saying,
execution. Yeah.
look at the Youth Enterprise Development Fund and have leadership that actually is part of that turnaround team, like the way Moi did when he came up with the Dream Team. He said, where are the areas of focus? The areas of focus would be, of course, the head of public service, so that he's the overall boss. Then he say the National Treasury. Then he say transport. Wherever so these are the areas that we need to turn around. Those are areas we focus on. So where would we place this turnaround team?
This current
Youth
team
Enterprise
that's in the
Development
OP,
Fund.
there's a unit at the OP. What do they do currently?
The President Delivery Unit is basically the one that looks at the kind of work that the other ministries are supposed to do to ensure delivery of the President's agenda.
That's it.
So,
right?
and
So they say, for
yeah.
example, that we have an SGR coming up. With SGR, what does it require? It requires you need to think about land. You need to think about getting the thing moving and up and running. What exactly is it that we need to monitor? So ensuring that all the cogs are oiled and they're all moving towards the delivery of this particular project. So, for example, if you say, the issue of manufacturing, I'm sure that they'll be working with the various ministries that are involved in ensuring that manufacturing works, bringing the private sector, ensuring the private sector understands those private sector roundtables. What work is the PDU doing to ensure that works? I'm not exactly sure how they do it, but from where I see, I think it's their delivery unit.
I'm not sure also what they do. I know they have a name.
Right. Could it be that then they're serving up a lot of information in terms of what they see? But just like you said, then the implementation at an execution stage is where we see the problem. And I think that is the thing, because we've talked about the fact that policies in this country are there. Beautiful policies that have been used the world over. We've given the example of Rwanda. We've given the example of Nigeria, whereby policies that have been written by Kenya are being used in other countries. So for me, then I see the problem then at the implementation execution stage, where we say, okay, fine. If we have all this information and we know what we're supposed to be doing with it, unfortunately, without the implementation and execution then of it, all of this work that has been done in oversight is useless.
We talked about industrialization. And at the time, this is what I said. I said, to me, it's by far the most important of these pillars. And I gave my reasons. And I said, you see, manufacturing brings to you an end product. But because it requires raw materials, it provides impetus for what we call the agricultural sector, the horticultural sector to actually flourish, because they provide the raw materials for industry. Okay? Then I said, it then provides employment in a three-tiered way. One, it provides employment at the level where you are dealing with the raw products, whatever it is you're planting and what have you. It then provides employment with transportation, because these things have to be moved from one place to the other. Then it then provides employment at the level of actual manufacturing, because if you have a lot of produce, then it means the capacity for manufacturing is enhanced. So this also increases. Now, this is not something I invented. It's just a fact of economics that anybody who has a little understanding of it will understand how it works. It's not really complicated. But here you have a situation where there's a government with all the units whose functions as stated are clear, but the functions are not seen clearly. We have, for instance, there's a unit I like the name, Efficiency Monitoring Unit. What they're supposed to do is to determine that if you are, say, the head of a parastatal and you have a mandate, if, say, for instance, you are head of pyrethrum board, you know the amount of pyrethrum that you are supposed to ensure that you oversee the growing of. And then it goes as a chain. From this, it goes to this. I'm giving a very rough example. And if there isn't growth or encouragement in the growth of pyrethrum, then of course that industry cannot grow, because it actually has to be grown for it to work. And from what one of our callers actually mentioned to us very clearly the other day, pyrethrum is the way to go. Because it's actually, and we did have a ministry. By the time you have a parastatal in charge of pyrethrum,
it's a big deal.
It is a big deal, or it was a big deal.
It was a big industry.
It was a big industry. Again, it died. Okay? Or it's sort of like trying to resurrect but not doing a very good job of it.
Yeah.
Now, all I'm saying is, when there's a mandate that somebody carries out, it isn't difficult. For instance, we know there's a unit called CARI. We know what they do. We know carefree. We actually know what they do, and you actually see what they do. It isn't as though we don't have examples of units that function. We have them, and we see what they do.
There are people who will tell you they don't see or know what Calro does or what Carefree does.
Or that they
because
existed.
They have no
existed.
interest.
Yeah.
Exactly. The same way you
They have
don't
no
know what
interest.
PDU does or what the other agencies
But
do.
if you have employment as a major problem in the country, surely,
Somebody's not doing their
all
job.
these people who we train, we give the impression they can be absorbed in one way or the other, and then there's nothing at the end of that particular road. Surely,
It's not nothing.
and there are people who are in charge of it. It's next to nothing.
It's not
If-
nothing. It is 13 minutes to 8 o'clock. That's the time. We're discussing unemployment, and CT Muga is saying the president needs to set up a turnaround team to ensure that the programs of the government in creating job opportunities for the youth actually materialize. What do you think? We're going to open up the phone lines now, 0719 012 600. Good morning.
.1 Spice FM. Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Now, City, by the way, for the record, I'm buying the idea of having some rapid results initiative taken, or even coordination, even in terms of communication, so that we can see that there's movement in creation of job opportunities for the youth and empowering the youth also to not only seek white-collar jobs, but to create opportunities for themselves. Like you said, there are very many things that the youth do, and they are creating opportunities for themselves. Now, I just want to clarify what the PDU does. From their own website, they say the PDU is a center of government functions based in the Office of the President. Its primary remit is to improve the coordination of national government flagship programs, monitor, evaluate, and report on the timely fulfillment to the President Uhuru Kenyatta's key development priorities. The delivery unit, which reports to the Chief of Staff and Head of President's Delivery Unit, works alongside other essential offices and departments within the presidency. These are the Office of the Deputy President, Office of the Chief of Staff of the Head of Public Service, the Cabinet Affairs Office, the Office of Performance Management, the State Corporations Oversight Office, the Office of Budget Management, and the Vision 2030 Secretariat. So it works with all these. Basically, it's